We have cycled 9,000 kilometers with our bicycles, and on our cycling around the world trip, die kleine Runde, we have already cycled 5,000 kilometers. This means it's now time for some maintenance work.
Okay, now let's have a look about some maintenance which we have to do regularly on our touring bikes. The exact steps you have to do when being cycling for long times strongly depend on your setup of your bike, of course. From time to time you should clean your bike. It's not that much about optics, it's more about maintenance and especially detecting a defect that you might not detect by noise or cycling behavior otherwise. So it's essential to detect trouble like loosening screws or corrosion at some part of the bike. So you should clean it from time to time. What everybody should do from time to time is checking your brakes, whether the brake pads are still in shape or are worn. So here you should be familiar with your type of brake pad. Here you can see at the rear it's still okay. It's a little bit like 1.5 millimeter each. That's okay for some time now. We won't change it today. If it's below 1 millimeter, you should change it. It's also not possible to say how long brake pads will last. It strongly depends on the material, on the manufacturer, and of course of your weight, of the weight of your bike, of your luggage, and how many mountains you pass by, how many cities you are traveling. You're using your brakes much more in cities and when going downhill. So no, we can't say how long it will last. These brake pads are now for 5,000 kilometers on the bike and still good. So let's take a look at the front brake. Still looks okay too. No surprise if the rear still looks fine and the brake pads have the same age, then the front should be fine too, because front wheel has less weight, much less weight than the rear wheel. And if you are riding a Brooks saddle, which a lot of touring cyclists do, yeah, you have to treat it from time to time with some kind of grease. And the most important part is applying grease to the bottom side of the saddle. The upper side is actually not that important. Most important is here to apply it to the bottom side of the saddle, and it helps to prevent the leather from drying and increases the durability of the saddle. This is probably the largest disadvantage of these Brooks saddles, that they require some maintenance, but it's not that hard. Just apply a small film of grease on the top, not much. Okay, now let it in this stay for about 24 hours, and afterwards you can polish the top surface of the saddle with the cloth. When riding leather saddle, you have to adjust the tension of the leather from time to time. In the case of a Brooks saddle, you adjust the tension by turning this screw here. This not a little bit. No big deal. This should be no surprise. From time to time when cycling, you should check your pressure on the tires and adjust it to the original value. So with these tires, these Marathon Mondial 26-inch tires, we are using at the front about 4 bar and at the rear about 4.5 bar. And make sure that you stay within the limits that are specified by the manufacturer. So we are using a gauge with internal pressure indicator. Sounds good, but I'm not entirely convinced of this tool because this adapter is quite hard to be put on the valve. So I'm not really convinced of this one. So now at the rear we are about 4.5 to 5 bar, which is good for the rear wheel where most of the weight is. And as I said, just stay within the limits that the manufacturer of the tire says.
It's good.
Okay, that was. I'm putting now the cleaning oil in.
First cleaning oil.
Cleaning oil, then
With this oil.
Yep.
Okay.
Then we are going to rotate the wheel in a third and fifth gear.
But you first put the screw when you rotate. You back the screw.
Yeah, I put it back into. Yeah.
Okay.
And to get it out, I attach the hose and then put it upside down.
Yes, I understand.
Genau. Das jetzt für 2 Minuten. Tut mir leid. 2 minutes. Okay, stopp. Und wenn es nicht geht, können wir uns abwechseln. Und stopp.
Now?
Now we are putting the hose back on. We have to wait now in this position for half an hour. So now
But
we
it's how get the air to go outside, because you know when it's like vacuum, how it's going without, they must to have some little air to, you know, when it's vacuum it cannot go out.
No, the volume I'm taking out
Yes.
is so small that the difference in
okay, so
pressure
enough
is
inside.
small.
Okay, understand.
So I'm causing a little bit of under pressure, which causes when I took the oil out and I removed the hose, you will hear a little psst.
Okay,
it's
it makes
not so much.
Yes, it's not so.
Yeah.
Oh, understand. But how much is the hole when you're changing the oil? How much you will put the new one?
25 milliliters of cleaning oil.
Then
I take everything out and then I put in 25 milliliters new oil.
new, okay.
Gut, dann rotes Rad hochdrehen. Stopp. Okay. Now after changing the oil in the rear hub, we are going to adjust the tension of the chain. Make familiar with your own system. I finished adjusting the tension of the chain. You should do this depending on how many mountains you are cycling and how much force you are using, and depending on what chain you are using, you should check the tension of the chain every 1000 to 2000 kilometers. And of course, after adjusting chain tension, make sure that your chain is well oiled. Okay, in the last step we will adjust the tension of the wires you are using for shifting, how often you have to do it, whether you have to do it, how to do it, depends completely on what system you are using. So there's no general rule. Okay, so we are finished now with this bike, and I hope you got a little impression what we have to do every about 5,000 kilometers, and got a little impression what to prepare for if you are going on a huge bike trip by yourself.
We hope this was helpful for you. We see you next time, then we are in Bulgaria.